Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Ask Us Anything VWO session, where we try to address all your queries and concern around experimentation and what you can do to get more out of VWO. In today's session, our expert Nancy Thakur, who's an optimization consultant at VWO, would going to take your questions and answer uh, whatever challenges or concerns you have regarding using the VWO platform. Nancy, thanks for joining in. Over to you.
Thank you, Utkarsh. Thank you so much. All right. We have received two questions from Steve. So let me start with the first question. So it says, what are the most commonly used behavior triggers that one should try on websites to run tests? Well, there are multiple ways to define, for what segment the test should run for. But I'll give you the most, five commonly used behavior triggers. So first is click on an element. So this displays the changes when visitors they click on a predefined element on a page. For instance, you have a product page and you provide a login functionality to users, and they're able to get a discount after they log in, and there is a altogether different experience you provide to a logged in user, right? So if you're trying to optimize that section, so you can probably use that login text link on the product page as an element to trigger the test, that it will activate only if a user clicks on that particular text link. Right. So this is one of the most common used triggers. The other one is time spent on a page. So selecting this option triggers the changes when a visitor spends X seconds on a single page. For instance, if you have defined the time for the trigger as 10 seconds, the changes initialize, when the visitor spends 10 seconds or more on a page. For example, you show a slide in with some promotional code, and you only want to activate your campaign after user spends 10 seconds on a page. So that is how you can use this particular trigger. Then there is a user when he's trying to close the page. So in this case, the changes gets displayed when visitors attempt to close the test page, right? So you can use this option if you're trying different design or content on the exit intent pop-up of your website, right? Then the fourth one is page scroll. So in that case, basically, you would be showing the changes when a visitor has scrolled the page for more than a defined percentage or pixel. And this option is helpful if you are trying to test changes on elements that are placed at the bottom of the page, or only want to include the visitors that scroll to a certain section of the page. Right. So that is what you can use. In that case, you can use the page scroll trigger. Then the last one and fifth one is, basically day or time of a week. For instance, your hypothesis is around, that you want to target audience, target segment, user segment that basically comes to your website on weekdays. So in that case, you can use this kind of trigger that people who only visit your website during Monday to Friday, they are only, shown the campaign, whether they become part of control or variation. Right, so these are the five commonly used behavior triggers. There are other triggers as well, other user segments as well that could be used, in order to define your target audience. And these are also quite commonly used. So one of them is device type. For instance, you want to run a test which is, dedicated to optimizing a desktop experience. So in that case, you can set your target audience as desktop, or alternatively whether it's a mobile phone audience or tablet. Then location is also another one which is quite often used. For example, my hypothesis is to show free shipping message to the US audience, so I define the US as my target audience for the test to run. Right, so that is where you can use location. There is visitor type also, whether it's a new visitor or a returning visitor. So since both types of visitors have different awareness levels, we would want to show different content. Hence, in that case, this could be used. And VW places a tracking cookie to determine if a visitor is new or returning. Right. So in that case, you can use visitor type, and this is also quite often used. Uh, The other one is traffic source. So whether your user is coming from direct channel or from paid or organic search or some social platform, you would maybe, you're targeting a certain segment. So in that case, you can, use this particular option and just target that particular segment. For instance, email people coming from email channel. Right. The last one is landing page URL. So this is also something like, so you can select this option to track visitors who land first on a specific URL before landing on the test page. For example, you can select this option to track only the visitors who first land on the homepage of your site. For running a site-wide test using a URL pattern, you can specify the landing page URL as the homepage URL in a segment condition to collect data of visitors who first land on the homepage. Right. So these are a few quite often used, user segments while you run tests. So that was the first question. Then the other question from Steve is, would you recommend running more than one test simultaneously on a landing page or across your website? How does that impact the test analytics? Well, that's a very interesting question. So let's break it into two parts. So first is running multiple tests on a single page. There are two segments to this question. So first is running multiple tests on a single page. Right. So this particular segment, let's further divide it into two categories. One would be high traffic websites and the other would be low traffic websites. So for high traffic websites, for suppose the website gets more than 1 million traffic in a month, right? So you can run multiple tests definitely on a single page using mutually exclusive feature so that there is no interaction overlap. And in that case, you would be able to make sure that users who become part of test A, they do not become part of test B. And in that case, you would have cleaner data also. Right. So this is one option. The other option is to combine the test, to combine all the changes and run them in a single multivariate test. So this might be a bit time consuming, but you can optimize this test. What you can do is basically the losing versions. You can, if you see a consistent pattern of, that they're losing consistently, you can probably switch them off, and you can narrow down the combinations to only the winning combinations. So this process can reduce the number of versions you're testing over time. One major benefit of MVT is that you know how the combination of test A and test B variations would perform when shown together. Because what usually happens is that in case you are mutually exclusively running campaigns or sequentially running the campaigns in order, for instance, in a test A, variation comes out to be a winner, and in test B also, variation comes out to be a winner. But you don't really know whether, if you combine both of the variations, how will that impact your eventual website performance. So the major benefit of MVT is that it covers in fact that combination as well. Right. So that is for the high traffic website only. For low traffic website, we do not recommend you to run multiple tests on the same page. Rather, what you can do is use the prioritization model to define priority of your test and then run them sequentially. So this priority is basically based on three parameters. So first is what is the potential? And by potential, I mean how much improvement can be made on the page. So you should prioritize your worst performers, because essentially with potential, you're ranking your pages based on how poorly they're performing, right? So for instance, your cart page is an important page. It's at the bottom of the funnel. Your visitor intent is quite high. They have the purchase capacity as well. But if you see that it has, a 70% drop off, so that defines that, it's quite poorly performing, and this needs to be attended, first. Then the second parameter is importance. So how valuable is the traffic to that page? Your most important pages are those with the highest volume and costlier traffic. So you may have identified pages that perform terribly, but if they don't have a significant volume of costly traffic, then they aren't, testing priorities. Right. Last parameter is ease of implementation, which means how difficult will it be to implement a test on this page, the final consideration is the degree of difficulty of running a test on that page, which includes technical implementation or any kind of organizational barriers. So on these three parameters, you will give a score to each and every hypothesis you come up with, and then there is an aggregate score to all the hypotheses, right? And the one which ranks higher out of five, you can rank them. So you will prioritize that first, and then run that first in the order. The other section of this question is running multiple tests on different pages of the website. Right, so you can surely run multiple tests on different pages of the website. Based on your hypothesis, you would be tracking the performance of each test. For instance, for an e-commerce website, if I'm running a test on the product page, let's say, where some changes have been made to the call to action button text, right? So my immediate or primary metric would be to judge the performance of this test with the number of clicks I get on the add to cart button. And simultaneously, if I'm running a test on the home page where changes have been made to the call to action button text on home page in the first fold, so there my primary metric would be the number of clicks on that particular button. In such cases, you don't just look at purchases, which is the eventual goal, purchases or revenue, but also track the performance of these more immediate metrics, so that you're actually able to understand how user behavior got impacted because of the change introduced. So this is how you can actually strategize and prioritize which test to run, and sort of plan out your entire roadmap. So yeah, so that is it from my side. Any questions?
Super, Nancy. Anshul, do you
Mhm.
want to take this question of what are could be other ways of running multiple tests on a website or a page?
Yeah, just one additional thing apart from what Nancy said. I think I think the idea of running one test, like one test at a time, and then if you have multiple tests, prioritizing them and then running them one by one is a pretty great way of ensuring that uh, effects of one test do not interfere with the results of the other. So you are at all times aware what exactly is causing your visitors to a little, what exactly is causing a change in behavior for your visitors. Is it change that you did in test one or test two? The other way that Nancy also highlighted was combining the changes together, if they can be combined, if they're all working towards the same goal, into one test, and running something like a multivariate test, which would be a combination of all the changes, where you can also pick and choose. If, let's say, if there are certain that don't make sense, you can remove them at the start, or if there are certain ones that don't give out a good performance based on early indicators, you can also remove them from your test. But yeah, running a common test that combines each and every variation. There is also one other way, that is running your test exclusively. Now, there is a feature in VWO, and what it does is, if using it, you can group two or more tests and say that any visitor that becomes part of one test from this group will not see the other test. So in effect, you are running more than one test on your website, but visitors on your website are getting divided into into those tests, and one visitor will see only one test. So at a time, uh, they are not influenced by two different campaigns that are running on your website. So this using a setup like this, it ensures that your website visitors sorry, it ensures that the data that you collect in individual campaign is not affected by other tests, and hence you can maintain data sanity, and still at the same time allow for more than one test to run on your website at the same time. So yeah, this is what I wanted to add. Utkarsh, over to you.
Awesome. Uh, I don't see any more questions on the platform. Uh, Attendees, if any of you have any question, this is the time to ask our expert. Uh, no, I think the attendees are good. I don't see any more questions coming. So thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Anshul, for your time and sharing all, answering all those questions from our customers. And it was a good engagement around, you answering a lot of questions and giving us deeper insights around all these experimentation things. So thank you. And with that, I would like to sum up my session. Just another shout out to the next session. We're going to do another weekly AMA, Ask Us Anything, next week, same time, on Thursday at 8:30 p.m. So feel free to join that session and ask any question or concern you might have, and we'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.